I flew to my son's place without telling him. And when I got there, I found my daughter in law lying alone in the ICU, very sick. Meanwhile, my son was driving around town with some girls in the car I had bought him. Quietly, I called the police and reported the car stolen. 2 days later, they let him go and he came crawling back to me on his knees, only to find that I had signed everything over to his wife. Hello, friends. Before I start sharing this difficult story with you, I have a small request. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. It helps stories like this reach more people. Also, leave a comment telling me which city or state you are listening from. It makes my heart happy to know how far my story has traveled. Get comfortable and enjoy listening. The airport was busy, full of the smell of roasted coffee and the weight of other people's expectations. But I didn't feel the usual joy that comes when a mother flies to see her children. Deep inside, under my ribs, a heavy, icy knot of fear turned over. That fear made me a very organized woman who plans everything months ahead. Drop everything, buy a ticket, and fly across the country without saying a word. In my tote bag were 2 glass jars of homemade elderberry preserves. Dark, tart, and healing, the kind my son Sterling loved as a child in Chicago. Alongside the jars was a soft teddy bear. Maybe it was silly. Vada, my daughter-in-law, wasn't even pregnant as far as I knew. But her voice had sounded so thin and fragile in our last conversation that I wanted to bring her something warm, something comforting and childlike. I left the terminal and breathed in the thick, humid air of this southern city. It felt heavy compared to the sharp northern winds back home. My phone stayed silent. I had called Sterling for 3 days straight, but no one answered. Vada had also disappeared a week ago. You can't trick a mother's heart, the old saying goes. I didn't believe it until I felt the cold sting of fear myself. The Uber brought me to their neighborhood in about 40 minutes. Through the window, the building looked tall and secure. A historic brick building with high ceilings and a big courtyard. I had bought this condo for them 3 years ago, right after the wedding. I wanted them to have a head start in life, so they wouldn't have to count pennies or live in a small, damp apartment. I thought a strong foundation of brick and money would make them happy. I was wrong. When I stepped off the elevator on the third floor, I froze at the door. It was slightly open, as if someone had left in a hurry. I pushed the heavy door and stepped inside. A stale, heavy smell hit me immediately. It didn't smell like home or like the peach cobbler Vada loved to bake. It smelled like old tobacco smoke and something sour like wine that had gone bad. Sterling had promised me he'd quit smoking a year ago. Mama, it's bad for you and not cool anymore, he said, flashing that charming smile that could get anything from me. Boots were scattered in the hallway. One stood upright, the other had been kicked against the coat rack, leaving a mark on the cream-colored wallpaper. I walked into the kitchen carefully, unsure who I might wake. A huge pile of unwashed dishes covered the table along with dried pizza crusts, empty bottles of fancy cognac, and on the edge, a stack of unpaid bills, pink and white envelopes that no one had opened. But the scariest part was a small box of medication sitting next to the bills. Heart pills and blood pressure medicine that Vada's doctor had prescribed 6 months ago. The box was still sealed and a thick layer of dust covered it, speaking louder than any scream ever could. It hadn't been touched in a long time. "Who are you looking for?" A raspy voice croaked from behind me. I jumped and turned around. An elderly woman stood in the doorway. An elderly woman in a faded housecoat, looking at me with a mix of curiosity and pity. "I'm Sterling's mother," I said. My voice was steady, but inside everything was shrinking. "Where are they? Where is Vada?" The neighbor pursed her lips and shook her head. "Oh, honey, I don't know where your Sterling is. Out running the streets somewhere, I reckon." The music was booming in here till morning 3 days ago. But your girl Vada, the ambulance took her. When? I exhaled. 2 or 3 days ago. They carried her out on a stretcher. She didn't look conscious. Then as a shadow. Nobody's been back since. The apartment's just been sitting open. I was about to call the police. The world tilted. I don't remember walking out of the building. I don't remember hailing a cab. Only one thought pulsed in my head. City General. Hospital. That was the nearest trauma center where they took all emergency cases. The ER waiting room smelled of bleach and trouble. People in scrubs flashed before my eyes like white blurs. I, usually composed and polite, plowed through demanding the admission list. The last name Jefferson, Vada's married name, was found in the ICU log. The intensive care unit met me with silence, broken only by the rhythmic beeping of machines. They didn't want to let me in, but my presence, the look of a mother who would tear down any wall, forced the nurse to call the doctor. Dr. Dubois came out to meet me, a tall man with tired eyes. He took off his glasses and wiped them on the edge of his coat, studying me. "You the mother?" he asked dryly. "Mother-in-law." "Where is she? What's wrong with her?" "Pneumonia," he stated clearly. "Bilateral, advanced, but that's half the trouble. The body is exhausted, extreme dehydration and dystrophy. It looks like she hasn't eaten a proper meal in 2 weeks and lay with a fever of 104 for at least 5 days without any help. If the neighbors hadn't called 911 when they heard her fall, we wouldn't be having this conversation." I listened and every word dropped into my soul like a stone into a well. Didn't eat, didn't drink, lay alone. Where was my son? Where was the husband who took a vow to be there in sickness and in health? "Can I see her?" I asked quietly for a minute. "She's in a medically induced coma on a ventilator." I walked into the room. Vada lay on the high bed entangled in tubes and wires. Her face was wider than the pillow. Her cheekbones were so sharp it looked like they might tear through her skin. She had always been petite, but now she looked transparent. This wasn't just an illness. This was a slow murder by indifference. I couldn't breathe. The air in the room thickened, pressing on my chest. I needed to get out, to inhale the cool outside air before I screamed right there. I nodded to the doctor and, not feeling my legs, walked to the exit. I stopped on the hospital steps. The evening city was lighting up. Cars rushed by, people were hurrying about their business, unaware that a young woman was dying behind these walls. And then I saw him. Screeching tires. A massive SUV flew around the corner. The metallic midnight blue paint sparkled under the streetlights, blinding my eyes. This car, luxurious, powerful, the safest in the class, I had given to Sterling a month ago for his birthday. "For the family, Mama. To drive the future kids around," he had said back then. The windows were rolled down. Deafening club music poured from the cabin, rattling the glass in the hospital windows. My son was behind the wheel. He was laughing, head thrown back, shouting something to his passengers. And the passengers were two young women shrieking with delight, leaning out the windows and waving at passersby. Sterling didn't look at the hospital. He didn't even turn his head toward the windows where his wife was fighting for every breath. He was the king of the world, the owner of an expensive toy I had bought him. The car roared past, blasting me with wind and the smell of brunk rubber, and disappeared around the turn toward downtown where the nightclub lights burned. I stood there stunned. Anger hadn't arrived yet. There was only icy numbness. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out. A message from Sterling lit up the screen, the first one in 3 days. The text read, "Hey Ma, can't talk. I'm at the hospital with Vada right now. It's really serious. The doctors are fighting. I haven't left her side. Pray for us." I stared at the glowing screen and the letters blurred, not from tears. The tears evaporated instantly, burned away by a cold heat rising from the very depths of my being. "Pray for us," he wrote. The man who had just sped past his dying wife with loud music and strange women was asking me for prayers? In that moment, something inside me snapped with a loud crack. It wasn't the sound of a broken heart. No, it was the sound of the patient string snapping, the one that had held my blind maternal love for years. I realized that before me was not just an immature boy confused about life. Before me was a monster, calculating, cynical, and absolutely certain of his impunity. I didn't scream. I didn't call him back to vent my rage, to hear his pathetic excuses or drunken laughter. Sterling had pouted, then pushed out his lip. "Mama, don't you trust me?" I had joked it off, said, insurance was cheaper for a senior citizen. Now that joke was my ace in the hole. He thought the car was an extension of his ego, but on paper, it was my property, which meant he drove it only with my silent consent. Consent that ended the exact second I saw his laughing face in the window. I took out my phone and, without a single muscle twitching in my face, dialed 911. 911, what is your emergency? A tired dispatcher answered. "Good evening. I want to report a stolen vehicle," I said clearly, making sure every word landed heavy as a gavel. "State your name and the vehicle information." I gave my name, the make of the car, the license plate number. "Where and when did the theft occur?" "I just saw my vehicle, a blue Escalade, moving down Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, heading toward the majestic lights of the entertainment district. An unauthorized male is behind the wheel. Do you know the thief?" I closed my eyes for a second. Veda's face, tangled in tubes, floated before me. "No," I lied. Or maybe I told the truth. Was this person my son? I suspect the driver is under the influence of alcohol. He was driving extremely aggressively, creating hazardous situations. There are passengers in the vehicle. Their lives may be in danger. I ask you to take urgent measures. Copy that. An APB has been issued to patrol units. Please hold. I hung up. The hand holding the phone was absolutely steady. No tremors, no doubts. I had just called the police on my own son, and I did not feel even a single drop of regret. But that still wasn't enough. The car was only metal. I needed to protect what truly mattered. I found Odora's number in my phone. She was my old friend, the smartest lawyer in the city, a tough woman who never asked useless questions when she heard the steel in my voice. It was late, but Odora still answered after the second ring. "Olia, are you in town? Why didn't you call?" "Hello, Odora. I'm here. Listen carefully. I need you to start preparing some papers right now, tonight." "What papers, Olia? Did something happen? You sound like you're in a board meeting." "Worse, Odora, much worse. I need a deed of gift for the condo, the one where Sterling and Veda live." "Got it. So you're transferring it to Sterling? You finally decided to give him the title?" "No," I cut her off. "Not to Sterling. To Veda." There was silence. Odora had known me for 30 years. She knew how much I cared for that boy. A change like this could only mean a disaster. "To Veda," she repeated slowly. "Olia, are you sure? That's a serious step. That property is worth a fortune." "I have never been more sure, Odora. And prepare a general power of attorney in my name for all matters related to that property. I want the papers ready for signing tomorrow morning. I'll pay double your rate for the rush." "I'll get it done," she said, her voice turning sharp and professional. "Come to my office at 8 a.m. We said goodbye. I stayed in the lobby looking at the closed ICU doors. 20 minutes passed. Time felt thick and heavy like tar. I imagined the police car pulling over the blue SUV with flashing lights. I imagined the loud music stopping. I imagined the smirk falling off Sterling's face. My phone rang loudly, cutting through the quiet hospital air. A local number I didn't know. Aaliyah Vance? The voice said with strict authority. Yes, speaking, I answered. This is Officer Bradshaw. We've stopped a vehicle matching your description on Peachtree Street. The driver is a man named Sterling Vance. He is acting angry and refusing arrest. In the background, I heard noise. A fight and my son's twisted shout. You have no right. Call her. That's my mother. She'll explain everything. Miss Vance, the officer said loudly, the suspect claims he is your son and that you gave him the car. If you confirm this, we must release him with only a DUI ticket. Is that true? I breathed in the cold hospital air, thinking of Veda lying behind the wall, alone in the darkness of her coma, while he partied. Officer, I said, my voice steady and firm. My son, Sterling, is in the ICU of City General Hospital. He is sitting by his dying wife's bedside. He is praying for her and hasn't left her. The man you arrested is a liar. I don't know who he is or why he is using my name. There was a second of silence as the officer thought. I understand, Miss Vance. We will handle this with the full force of the law. Grand theft auto, resisting arrest, fraud. Thank you, officer. Do your job. I ended the call. The screen went dark. I looked at my reflection in the window's glass. The woman staring back at me felt unfamiliar, but I liked her. She was ready for battle. I put my phone in my bag like someone holstering a gun after firing a shot. The silence inside me still rang, the way it rings after something explodes. But there was no time to think. I had a goal, and that goal lay behind the wall, covered in wires. The next 48 hours mixed together into one long gray day. I practically lived in the hospital. I spoke with the chief doctor, paid for a private room, and a nurse who stayed all day and night. Money, like always, opened doors that stayed closed for other people. I sat by Veda's bed, holding her soft, limp hand, and talked. I talked about the weather, about the bright autumn leaves up north, about the sweet potato pies we'd bake when she got better. I filled the silence with words, so death would not dare step into the quiet. Sterling sat in a jail cell during this time. I knew this because my phone kept lighting up with unknown numbers from the jail. He was using his one phone call, but he wasn't calling a lawyer. He was calling me. I never answered. I imagined him angry, not scared, pacing the cell like a wild animal, telling everyone what a huge mistake this was. My mama's gonna come get me. She's going to tear this place apart. I could hear him saying it in my mind. He thought it was just a mix-up, a little problem that his mighty mama would fix. One time he left a voicemail. I listened to it in the hallway. Mama, where are you? Why aren't you answering? His voice cracked and squealed. They say you reported the car stolen. Are you crazy? Bring the papers and the keys and tell them it was a mistake. I'm stuck here with bums. I smell, Mama. Not a single word about Veda. Not one question about her. Only I, me, mine. He thought Veda was silent. That like a loyal dog, she was lying at home waiting for him, not daring to complain to his mother-in-law. He didn't know his silent victim was balancing on the edge of life and death, and his silence was more powerful than any words. In between shifts at the bedside, I went to the apartment. I needed to find Veda's ID to process the transfer to the private room. The apartment greeted me with the same smell of stagnation and betrayal. I started methodically going through things in their bedroom. In a dresser drawer under a stack of neatly folded linens, I stumbled upon an old diary and a worn cover. It wasn't just a notebook. It was a chronicle of survival. I opened it at random. Veda's handwriting, usually round and neat, was small and erratic. Here, March 12th. Sterling asked for money again, said he needed it to maintain his status in front of partners. I gave him the last $400 I saved for the dentist. My tooth hurts unbearably. But he said if he didn't have a new shirt, the deal would fall through and we'd be on the street. I flipped the page. April 20th. He screamed. Said the apartment is actually his. That my mother gave it to him and that we just let me stay there. Said if I nag him about a job, he'll kick me out. I'm scared. I have nowhere to go. Mom's gone. Dad is far away. I have to endure it for the family. Sleep. He turned off the heat in winter in an apartment where his sick wife lay just to save a few bucks that he immediately blew on gas for his toy and cocktails for tramps. He was freezing her alive. I walked out of the room, leaving the doctors to work on Vad. My face had turned into a stone mask. There was no longer a mother. There was a judge. And the verdict had already been passed, final and without appeal. I stepped out of the hospital into the morning fog, feeling every step resonate in my head. But there was no fatigue. Liquid nitrogen flowed through my veins instead of blood. Vad's words. He turned off the heat in winter in an apartment where his sick wife lay just to save a few bucks that he immediately blew on gas for his toy and cocktails for tramps. He was freezing her alive. I walked out of the room, leaving the doctors to work on Vad. My face had turned into a stone mask. There was no longer a mother. There was a judge. And the verdict had already been passed, final and without appeal. I stepped out of the hospital into the morning fog, feeling every step resonate in my head. But there was no fatigue. Liquid nitrogen flowed through my veins instead of blood. Vad's words. He turned off the heat. Became the final drop that turned my grief into a mechanism of destruction. An Uber took me to Odora's law office in 20 minutes. The city was just waking up. Street sweepers were clearing the sidewalks, unaware that someone's world was collapsing. Today, Odora was waiting for me, just as she promised. Her office smelled of expensive coffee and old paper, the smell of stability and law. "You look terrible, Olia," she said, instead of a greeting, looking over my rumpled coat and the dark circles under my eyes. "But your eyes are burning in a way that scares me. Let's get to business, Odora." I sat in the chair without taking off my coat. "Are the papers ready?" She silently slid a folder toward me. "Deed of gift for the condo in the name of V.A. Jefferson." "Everything as you asked, but Olia, before you sign, I have to show you something." Odora pulled another folder from the safe, a thin blue one. "Yesterday, when I was pulling the title abstract, I stumbled upon an interesting inquiry. Your son, Sterling, applied to a payday loan company a week ago. A very shady one, I must say." And I asked, feeling a new spring tighten inside. And as collateral for the loan, he provided copies of the documents for this very apartment. "Oh yeah," Odora lowered her voice. "There was a power of attorney, allegedly from you, giving him the right to mortgage the property." She opened the folder and showed me a photocopy. I looked at my signature. It was almost perfect. Almost. Only the tail of the O was a little longer than I usually write. "It's a forgery." I stated calmly. "Crude, but for thugs it would pass." Odora nodded. He was planning to borrow a huge sum, and if he couldn't pay it back, and he wouldn't have, judging by his credit history, which I also checked, some tough guys would have come to you asking you to vacate the premises. He planned to sell the roof over his wife's and mother's heads to cover gambling debts. We're talking thousands, Olia. He's a gambler. I closed the folder. The puzzle was complete. That's why he saved on heating and medicine for Ved. He didn't need money for status. He needed it for the game. And when the money ran out, he decided to bet the apartment. My apartment. Vad's life. Where's the pen? I asked Odora a heavy Parker pen. I signed the deed with a sweeping, heavy hand, 3 copies. With every stroke, I cut off a piece of the past where my beloved son Sterling existed. Now there was only Sterling Vance, fraudster and sadist. Send it for registration immediately, electronically, so the apartment is hers in an hour. Will do. Odora nodded, stamping the official seal. What about the car? I'll handle the car myself. Leaving the notary, I dialed the dealership where I bought that cursed SUV. The manager, recognizing my voice, practically bowed over the phone. Alex, listen to me carefully. The car I bought last month is currently at the police impound lot. As the owner, I am authorizing you to pick it up with the tow truck. I'm sending the documents via courier right now. Of course, Miss Vance. Where should we deliver the vehicle? To service? No. To the trade-in department. I want to sell it immediately. Sell it? Genuine surprise rang in the manager's voice. But it's brand new. You'll take a loss. I don't care how much I lose. Sell it today for whatever price the wholesalers offer. Main condition: the money must not be transferred to my account. I will send you the details for the hospital's charity fund. Purpose of payment: treatment and rehabilitation of Vad Jefferson. I understand. We'll get it done. I hung up. Now Sterling had nothing. No wheels, no housing, no mother's purse. I had scorched the earth around him, leaving him naked on the ashes. My phone pinged again. A notification from the bank. The state filing fee had been paid. The apartment was going to Vad. I returned to the hospital to give the doctors a copy of the payment receipt for the treatment. The money from the car sale would arrive by evening, but I wanted them to know resources exist. Spare nothing. As I was leaving the chief physician's office, my phone came alive again. This time it wasn't Sterling. It was an unknown woman calling. Hello? Is this Sterling's mother? The voice was squeaky, young, and entitled. Who is this? I asked in an icy tone. This is Candy. I was with Sterling in the car when those pigs arrested us. Listen, lady, your son told me the whip was his, that he's a big businessman, and now the cops are telling me the car is stolen? Are you running a family of con artists? I chuckled. Here they were. Colleagues. Candy, I said softly, almost sweetly, Sterling lied to you. He has no car. He has no business. And he has no apartment either. He lives off a librarian wife and a retired mother. What? The phone squealed. But he promised me a trip to Miami. I'm afraid the only trip he's going on is a bus ride to the unemployment office. I hung up and immediately another message arrived from Sterling. Mama, they released me. It was hell. I'm coming home. We need to talk seriously. You owe me an explanation for this circus. He was going home to an apartment that didn't belong to him anymore. To a wife he almost killed. He still thought he was master of the situation. I checked my watch. 2 hours had passed since I gave the order to the dealer. At that moment, Sterling's phone should have been on full volume because I imagined him standing on the steps of the police station, dirty, angry, reading the message Candy had just sent him. I didn't see it, but I knew it would happen. Candy, judging by her voice, wasn't a girl who forgave shattered dreams of Miami. And indeed, a minute later, Odora sent me a screenshot. She was monitoring Sterling's social media. A post appeared on his wall. From user Queen Candy. Yo, ladies, don't fall for this loser as Sterling Vance. The whip is his mama's. Bro is broke, and his own mom called the cops on him. Gah, embarrassing. Don't call me again, loser. I put the phone away. Checkmate. Son, you wanted the high life. You got the fame. Now let's see how you handle it. I got up and walked to the exit. I needed to meet him not at home, but at the hospital, where the truth lay, the truth he was running from. So hard. I took a position in the lobby, right across from the elevators. In my hands was a book
a volume of Baldwin I had grabbed from the Vad's house, but the lines were jumping before my eyes, refusing to make any sense. I was not really reading, I was only waiting. About 40 minutes passed before the elevator door slid open, and he stepped out. Sterling looked sad and broken. His fancy shirt was wrinkled and stained with something brown. His hair stood straight up, and there were dark shadows under his eyes. He was limping on the left leg, maybe from how the police or the cellmates treated him. But even in this sad shape, he tried to act proud. He looked around, not for a doctor and not for his wife, but only for me. When he saw me sitting, he walked straight toward me. His face twisted, trying to look angry, but it only looked like a spoiled kid throwing a fit. Finally, he barked across the hallway, making a sleepy nurse jump. "Mama, what did you do? Do you even understand what you did? They kept me locked up for 2 long days with bums." He stood over me, waiting for me to jump up, like always, to panic and say sorry and shove money at him and pat his head. But I didn't move. I slowly closed the book, set it on my knees, and lifted my eyes. My gaze was dry, calm, and sharp, like desert sand. "Hello, Sterling," I said softly. "You smell. Go clean yourself before you start."
You are bluffing. You just want to scare me. I am going to vet right now. She loves me. She will undo it. She will sign whatever I say. He spun around and ran toward the ICU doors. "Vet," he yelled, throwing the door open. "Vet, tell her." I did not stand up. I already knew what would come next. Sterling only managed 2 steps into the room. From behind the privacy screen, a figure appeared. It was not a doctor. It was a man in a private security uniform, broad-shouldered with a stone face. I had hired him 2 hours ago with one order: protect the patient from any male visitors except medical staff. The guard silently blocked Sterling's path. His hand, as big as a shovel, landed on my son's chest. "Unauthorized entry prohibited," he rumbled in a deep voice. "Get your hands off me," Sterling squealed, trying to get past the mountain of muscle. "I am the husband. I have rights. Vet, wake up." Vet lay still, but the heart monitor jumped. "You were disturbing a critical patient." The guard began to push Sterling back, gently but firmly. "Leave or I will have to use force." Sterling tried to resist, his boots sliding on the floor. "Mama," he yelled, turning back to me. "Tell him she is my wife." I sat still, holding the book. "Take him away," I said quietly. The guard heard. Sterling was shoved into the corridor. The ward door slammed in his face, cutting him off from the person he thought was his property. He stood in the empty hallway, disheveled, humiliated, stripped of everything. He looked at me, his eyes full of hatred. Pure, clear hatred. And I knew the war had just started. He would not give up. He would pretend, be pitiful, crawl, lie, and he started already. His angry mask fell and became a mask of suffering. He sniffled and stepped toward me. "Mama?" His voice trembled, sounding pitiful, like when he broke a vase as a child. "Ma, I am sorry. I am a fool. I got confused. Help me. They are going to kill me." I knew he meant the people he owed money from the apartment sale, but I felt nothing but disgust. "Let's go outside," I said, standing up. "There are people here. We will talk where you cannot disturb the sick." I walked toward the exit, knowing he would follow. He had no choice. I was his last hope, and I intended to destroy it completely. We walked down a long hospital corridor, away from the nurse station and vet's room. It was empty. Only a flickering fluorescent light buzzed. Sterling followed like a beaten dog, but I felt his tension from behind. He was still searching for a way out, still thinking of options. I stopped by a window overlooking the parking lot where his blue SUV had stood, now empty. I turned to him. "Well," I said, "I am listening." Sterling looked around to be sure no one was watching and collapsed to his knees. It was so dramatic,
so fake that I felt sick. He grabbed my coat with dirty fingers, looking up. Mama, Mommy, forgive me, he wailed, and tears ran down his face. Real or fake, I could not tell, and I did not care. I will fix everything, he said. I swear, I will never drive drunk again. I will get a job. Just put everything back. Give the apartment back. He sobbed, wiping his nose on his sleeve. You don't understand, Ma. I have serious problems. I owe money, lots of money. If I don't pay, they will not just beat me, they will kill me. Mama, I am your son, your blood. Would you let them kill me? He spoke fast, choking on words, trying to make me feel pity, fear, guilt. And the girls in the car? Just colleagues, he said, coming from a corporate party. I only gave them a ride. I love Veta. I can't live without her. I prayed, Mama, believe me. I looked at his shaking hands, his pathetic posture, and I saw no son. I saw a parasite sucking life from us for years. Stand up, I said quietly. I won't stand up until you forgive me, he howled louder, hoping someone would witness the scene. Mama, I will do anything for you. I will take care of Veta. I will carry her in my arms. Just don't abandon me. Don't take my home. Stand up. My voice hit him like a slap. He flinched and slowly rose, still sniffling. You say you are my blood? I asked, looking him in the eye. Yes, he said. It is true. And my greatest shame, my worst mistake? I raised you. I gave you everything, but I did not teach you to be human. I opened my bag and took out a folded sheet of paper, a copy of the deed with the registrar's stamp. Odora had sent me. Look, I said, unfolding it in front of his face. See this stamp? The apartment is no longer yours and never will be. It belongs only to Vet. Sterling stared at the paper. His eyes darted across the lines, pupils wide. But how? He mumbled. What if she... Well, he did not finish, but I understood. If she dies, that is what he was thinking. If Vader dies, he, as the legal husband, gets everything. The apartment, the money, the things. He was already burying her in his mind and calculating profit. Thinking about inheritance? I asked, my voice so cold, it felt like the corridor temperature dropped 10 degrees. Don't get your hopes up. I took a second document. It was a will. My will, rewritten this morning at Odora's office while waiting for the apartment papers. Read, I pointed at the highlighted paragraph. Sterling read aloud, stumbling. All my property, movable and immovable, and funds and accounts, I bequeath to the Hope for Paws Animal Shelter. He looked at me full of a real horror. You're joking. Cats, Mama? Are you crazy? You are giving everything to cats? Leaving your own son on the street? Yes, I answered calmly. Cats are at least grateful when you feed them, and they don't turn off the heat on a sick person. You wouldn't dare. You wouldn't dare, he screamed, forgetting his repentant act, his face twisted with malice. I'll contest this. I'll prove you are not competent, that you were an old, senile woman. The court will side with me. I am the only heir. Try it, I smirked. I have a certificate from a psychiatrist. I got it today. I am of sound mind and memory. But you, son, have problems. What problems? Locks, I said simply. Tonight, the apartment will have new locks and a security system. If you try to enter without Veda's invitation, and I am sure she won't invite you, a squad will arrive. And this time, they will not let you out for 2 days. Sterling froze. He saw the disaster. He had no home, no car, no money, no inheritance. And the debts, he whispered. In that whisper, there was real terror. Mama, they will kill me. They really will. Give me money to cover the debt. I will leave, disappear. You will never see me again. Just give me money. No, I cut him off. You're a big boy, Sterling. You brewed this tea, now you drink it. Go work as a loader, janitor, cab driver. Oh, wait, you lost your license. That means a foot courier. Work it off. You, you monster, he spat in my face. You are not a mother. You are a viper. I hate you. I hope you die with your Veta. Feelings are mutual, son, I said, putting Pakin back in my bag. Now leave. Security is coming. At the hall end, two guards appeared, likely called by someone disturbed by the noise. Sterling looked at them, then me. Panic in his eyes. This is not over, he shouted, backing away. You will regret this. I will find a way. The apartment is mine. Mine! He turned and ran to the stairs, nearly hitting a nurse with a tray. I watched him go. I felt no pity. I measured the time, strength, and love wasted growing this weed, but it was too early to relax. He was cornered, and rats in a corner jump at the throat. He didn't just run away. He ran to the apartment. I knew it. He would try to get in before locks were changed, take everything valuable, appliances, that's jewelry, maybe furniture. I took my phone and called Odora. Odora, he's on his way. Are the locksmiths there? They are working, Olia. Police are here too. I asked an officer to supervise, showed him the deeds. Good, he is running there. Warned him, he is furious. Don't worry, Odora said calmly. We will meet him. I hung up and returned to the nurse station to check vet after this visit, but a new feeling was growing inside, a feeling of freedom. I cut off a rotten branch. Now the tree will breathe. All that remained was to protect what could still be saved. Sterling, as I predicted, did not go to the bus or friends. Choking with rage and fear, he raced to the only place he still thought was his, the apartment. I did not see it, but Odora told me later, and I pictured it as vividly as a movie. He flew into the lobby, skipping steps, ignoring the elevator. One thought pounding in his head: make it in time. Make it in time to grab the laptop, plasma TV. Stat else's property. You are nobody here. Do you know who I am? Sterling switched to his favorite useless ace. I have connections. I am making a call now. He feverishly pulled out his phone, poking the screen. Eudora and police silently watched. Hello? Doni? Debro? Help me. It's total lawlessness here. My mom went crazy. Cops pressing me. Hello? Hello? D-Money hung up or blocked him after hearing about the car theft. Sterling dialed another number. Sergio! Sergio! It's Sterling! Need guys urgently. Pull up to the crib. What do you mean you can't? What do you mean you heard? That is all lies, Sergio. He lowered the phone. No one wanted to risk for a loser with no rich mommy. Friends were friends of money and car. Without them, he was empty space. Leave, Sterling, Eudora said with fatigue. Don't make it worse. Nothing here for you. My stuff, he howled. My stuff in there. Clothes, computer. I have the right to take it. Your things are packed. Eudora nodded. She signaled the worker. He brought a large gym bag and 2 black trash bags stuffed tight. Here, clothes, shoes, hygiene products. The laptop stays. Bought on credit in Vita's name. Credit not paid. That is her property. The TV too, and the gaming console. The worker threw the bags at his feet. Take them and go. Sterling looked at these pathetic bundles. His whole life fit into 2 trash bags. You'll regret this, he hissed. You'll all regret this. I will not leave it like this. Citizen exit. The officer placed a hand on his holster. Clear? Sterling grabbed the bag, kicked one sack, and cursing tumbled onto the stairwell. The door slammed, the new lock clicked. The final period. He went down to the street. Evening. A cold wind chased fallen leaves across the asphalt. Sterling stood where yesterday he parked his luxury car, not knowing where to go. No girls, no friends, No money, no rent. He looked up at third-floor windows. Warm, cozy light, unreachable now. He realized he had been crossed out, not just kicked out, erased like a dirty stain. Trembling hands pulled his wallet. Inside lay a gold card linked to my account. His favorite to flash in restaurants, hotels. He thought, I will get a room at the plaza, sleep it off, and think of something in the morning. Mom will cool down. She always cools down. He dragged his bags to the nearest ATM glowing in the window of a late-night store across the street. He inserted the card, entered the PIN, and asked for the balance. The screen showed card service suspended by bank. Card kept. The machine whined and swallowed the plastic. Sterling stared at the dark slot where his last hope had vanished. No, he whispered. No, no, no! Give it back! He hit the screen, then hit it again. Give back the card! People walking by stepped away from him. A man with a dog stopped and said he would call the police. Sterling slid down the wall of the store onto the cold, dirty concrete. He sat with his trash bags around him, broke, lost, and alone. His phone battery had died after the last call to Sergio. He was in a strange, cold city with nothing. At that moment, I sat in the hospital when a message from the bank appeared. Attempted use of blocked card, card kept by machine. I put the phone down and looked at Vada. She was sleeping. Her breathing was deeper and calmer. The machines beeped steady and gentle. The worst was over for her. But for Sterling, real hell was only starting. A hell he built himself, piece by piece, lie after lie. And now he had to live in that dark house he created with no doors and no windows. 6 months passed. Autumn settled in, painting the city gold and red. But this cold was different. Clean, sharp, peaceful, like a rest before a new beginning. I sat on the balcony of that same apartment. Now it did not smell like damp walls or smoke, but like fresh tea with thyme and oil paints. Vada sat across from me, wrapped in a soft blanket like warm milk. She was still thin and moved carefully like someone healing after a long sickness. But the empty, haunted look in her eyes was gone. Now there was life there. She was painting. A soft watercolor scene grew on her easel, the old park we saw from the window. You know, Mom, she said, dipping her brush in a cup. She started calling me Mom a month ago, and every time she said it, my heart warmed. I found a job at the Central Library. They opened a rare books room and they need a restorer. The pay is not huge, but it is enough, and the work is peaceful. That is wonderful, darling. I smiled and sipped my tea. But do not worry about money. We have a safe cushion. I know. She put down the brush and looked at me with steady eyes. But I want to do this on my own. I want to feel that I can. After all this, I need to know I'm not helpless. You are the strongest girl I know. I put my hand over hers. We did not talk about Sterling. His name became forbidden, like saying it might call a dark spirit back into our home. But his shadow was gone from this apartment, just like the old wallpaper we tore down in the first months. The walls were a warm peach now, the furniture light and calm. We had washed away even the memory of him. I sold my company up north. The logistics business I gave half my life to was now in the safe hands of my deputies, and I gained freedom and the money to simply live. I bought myself a small studio in the building next door so I could stay close to Vada but not step on her new life. We became a family, a strange, broken, but real family, not tied by blood, but tied by scars. I'm going for a walk before the sun goes down, I said. Should I bring those cinnamon buns you like? Yes, please. Vada smiled. And bring milk. I stepped outside. The air was crisp and bright. I walked down the familiar street enjoying simple things. The rustling leaves under my feet, the laughter of children on the playground, the quiet peace I had not felt in many years while carrying the heavy burden of being a strong woman and the mother of a troubled son. My path went past a car wash on the corner. Usually I did not notice the activity there, but today my eyes caught a familiar figure. At the bay stood a huge black Jeep covered in foam, and around it, with a rag in his hands, worked a man in a wet gray jumpsuit. He was thin, stooped, with a wind-burnt face full of deep wrinkles. He scrubbed the fender of the car with frantic energy, afraid to miss a spot. It was Sterling! I slowed my pace, but did not stop. He noticed me. He raised his head and saw me. For a second, time stopped. We looked at each other across the road and across the abyss of betrayal. In his eyes, I expected anger, pleading, maybe shame, but there was only tiredness. Endless, dull exhaustion of a man fighting every day for a bit of bread. His hands, once manicured, used to holding glasses or steering wheels, were red from cold water and soap. He took a half step forward. His lips shook like he wanted to cry out, "Mama, help! Forgive!" I did not give him a chance. I did not look away. I did not hurry. I let my eyes slide over him like passing a lamppost or a stranger, and I walked on. My face was calm. Nothing trembled inside. No pity, no triumph, just a fact. Everyone gets what they deserve. He wanted a life of ease without work. Now he works dirty to survive. Balance is restored. I walked another block, feeling his eyes on my back. He did not follow. Apparently, life had taught him something. Or maybe the car wash foreman just shouted at him to work faster. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out. A message from an unknown number. "Ma? Please, I can't take it anymore. I understand everything. Give me a chance. Even $10 for food, please." I read the lines. Ma. A word that once was precious was now just letters. Chance. I gave him hundreds of chances. His whole life, I gave him chances.